Welcome to a Crop and Create delivered video tutorial from Scrapbook and Cards Today magazine. This is designer Lynn Ghahary, and today we are going to create a layout from start to finish using the Crop and Create delivered spring kit. Let's get started. We are going to be using this sketch from Becky Fleck. You can see that it has space for 3 photos on the layout. I'm going to be using photos of my oldest son, Darian. These photos were taken a few years ago when we released some butterflies into our yard that we had grown from a butterfly garden. I'm going to start with a piece of French vanilla cardstock by Basil Basics that's included in the kit. You can see on the sketch that it had several grid lines. So I gave myself some grid lines as well using my pencil. Later on I'm going to use a journaling pen to create some faux stitching, and I'll erase those lines. But I just wanted to give myself an idea of where exactly I should place my patterned paper pieces. Right now I'm just playing around with the placement of the different patterned paper blocks that I've cut from the kit as well as my photos. You can see that there are 3 3-inch square blocks of the Dear Lizzie floral paper. That particular patterned paper is the main color scheme of this layout. You can see I pulled the darker pink, the lighter pink, the blue, and later on I'll add some green. And those papers are all found in that Dear Lizzie floral paper. I'm just fooling around right now with the placement of the different blocks, just trying to get a general idea of where I might want to place them. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to actually start adhering some of the blocks down. I'm placing the Dear Lizzie patterned paper blocks in a visual triangle. A visual triangle is a great design principle to use when you're creating your layouts, as it really helps to create flow on your layout and have the viewer's eye move around your page. I'm using my ruler just to help me keep these patterned paper blocks straight. And you'll see that they are actually overlapping the pencil lines. That's because on the sketch, some of the patterned paper blocks went outside of those grid lines, and so that's what I'm doing here. So now that I've got my visual triangle set up of these Dear Lizzie patterned paper blocks, I'm going to come back in here with my other pieces of patterned paper and start building on top of those. I've cut some tags from the larger piece of crepe paper, patterned paper, and I'm going to use the tags to back each of my photos. When I'm placing the tags, I decided that I didn't want them all to face in the same direction. So you can see I have the bottom tag is actually facing to the left, and this top tag will end up facing to the right. And I'm going to have one more larger tag that is going to back my largest photo, and that tag will be standing upright. So I just wanted them to differ in their positions to give a little bit more flow to the page. Now I've cut a larger square out of this pretty light pink doily paper from Doodlebug, and it fits perfectly actually between my 3 floral pattern papers. So I just needed to move one of them up just a tiny bit so that they're all sitting flush against one another. And again, now I'm just trying things on. You'll see when I create my layouts, a lot of the process is just trial and error. I'm a visual creator, so I need to see how things look and get an idea of where I might need to add more color or more detail or more embellishments. So right now I'm trying to decide, do I want this darker piece of pattern paper up here at the top or down at the bottom? And I decided that I was going to move it down towards the bottom because the photo at the bottom has more of those darker charcoal colors in it, and I thought it played off the photo a little bit better. So right now I am just going to place this larger piece of the hot pink patterned paper that's from Fancy Pants. And again, you'll see right now I'm trying out that charcoal patterned paper up at top, and then I decide to move it down towards the bottom. So I pretty much have my patterned paper pieces where I want them. So now I'm going to come back in here and adhere these last two pieces. I'm going to use a pencil just to give myself a little bit of a guide so that when I go to place it down I know exactly where I want it. And I'll often use my pencil when I'm creating to give myself guide marks, and I'll just go back in later on with an eraser and get rid of those lines. I'm just going to make a pencil mark for this last piece of patterned paper. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to adhere my photos. That top photo was giving me a little bit of a problem. I wanted to have it a little bit further up on that piece of Dear Lizzie floral paper, but I didn't want any of the cardstock underneath to show through, so I had to reposition it on the tag. And then I'll adhere the last photo on the bottom. And then I'm also going to adhere the focal photo, the largest photo on the layout, to this lighter pink tag. Again, cut from that crepe paper, patterned paper. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to have this tag face upright with the opening for the tag on the top. So now we're going to move along to a fun little embellishment that is going to house our journaling. To do this, we're going to use the mini card from Doodlebug Designs, along with some Versamark ink and several different colors of embossing powder. And we're going to be using the fun butterfly stamp on the stamp set that was included with the kit. The first thing I'm going to do is use an embossing buddy. This is from Stampin' Up, to just run it over the front of my card front. This is a great idea to do this when you are using embossing powders. It helps to make sure that the embossing powders only stick to your ink and not to anywhere else on the card. And again, I'm using Versamark, which gives a very tone-on-tone pattern, but I'm going to be using it for embossing. It's a very wet or sticky ink, so the embossing powders will adhere to it, and then I can use my heat gun to heat those up. I'm just doing kind of a haphazard design here with the butterfly stamp. You can see I put some paper underneath because I'm having the butterflies run off the edge of the card. And I want to have several butterflies on here, so I'm just adding them wherever there's some negative or empty space on the card. And you can see here that tone-on-tone pattern that I've created with the butterflies. Now it's time for the embossing powders. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, I have 4 different colors of embossing powders that coordinate with the colors that I'm using from the kit. And I'm going to put them almost in a diagonal. I'm going to do one at a time, and I'm just using this little tray here so that I can easily clean up my embossing powders and move on to the next color. So I have pink, yellow, green, and blue. And again, I'm going to put them in a diagonal pattern so that they have almost, if I were using the same colors, it would almost create like an ombre effect, but it's got this very subtle kind of rainbow effect. And these embossing powders are from American Crafts, and they're opaque. So even though I'm using very light colors on a dark background, they will really pop out because they are opaque embossing powders. And I'm just continuing along here with my last two colors, a green and a blue. I'm going to be using this particular card to house my journaling. I've printed my journaling with my computer, and I'll simply adhere it to the inside of this card so that you can just flip it open on my layout. If you didn't want to use it for your journaling, obviously you could just use it as is, as a mini card, or you could adhere it to a larger card front and create more around it. So you can see here, those are my embossing powders. And now I've used my heat gun, and that's the finished product. And you can see it creates a very pretty rainbow effect with that butterfly stamp. So now here's the journaling card that I've created. And here's the journaling on the inside of the card. Again, it's a little story about how we ordered these caterpillars from the internet, and they grew into painted lady butterflies, and then we released them into our yard. So I'm going to go ahead now and adhere down my main photo, and I'll adhere down my journaling card as well. Now that I have all of the major elements of my layout adhered to my page, I'm going to come in here with my journaling pen and a ruler, and I'm going to create faux stitching. I'm using the pencil lines that I had at the beginning of my layout as my guide, and then once I have these journaling lines done, I'll go back in there and I will erase my pencil lines. You can see that some of the faux stitching lines are going over the patterned paper pieces that I've laid down, and some of them, like the tag for instance, I'm not writing the journaling lines over that so that it appears that they are running underneath. I love to add journaling lines to my layout. I think it's a really fun and easy way to create a little bit of detail. Plus, in a layout like this, it really helps to bring the eye in towards the center of the layout. I could have left it as is, but then you feel like the patterned paper pieces are almost floating off the edge of my background cardstock. So by creating these journaling lines, it automatically forces the eye towards the center of my layout where my photos are and where the title and our embellishments are going to lie. I've erased my pencil lines, and now I'm taking a quick look at the sketch, and you can see that the title lies directly above that main photo. I'm going to be using the thickers that are included in the kit, and I'm also going to be using the smaller Fancy Pants letter stickers. I love to mix up fonts and colors and different sizes when I'm creating my titles. It adds a lot of visual interest to your layout if you mix up colors and fonts and everything. So right now I'm spelling the word release. My title is going to read Butterfly Release, and I'm just trying to get an idea of where I want to place these. So I'm just very lightly adhering the letters down. And at first I thought that I was going to have the R rest to the right side of the opening in that tag. But when I laid everything down, it turned out that the E, the last E in release, was going to hang over the edge of the photo too much. And I didn't like that. I felt like it was kind of just hanging out there in space. So you'll see I go back and I actually move everything over to the left a little bit. And I end up placing the R right over that opening. And that's fine. You just need to, when you're placing your title, make sure that everything makes sense where you're placing it. It's a great way to make sure that your title is incorporated if you have it overlapping elements. So for example, if you have it overlapping a photo, overlapping, like I have here, the tag, or pieces of patterns paper. You can see that I went back in there. At first I had the different sizes of the letters. I had a larger R, a larger L, and a larger S. And then I decided to change the S to a small one because I want the word butterfly to rest right over top of my larger title. And right now I'm placing the word butterfly. And a lot of times what I do is if I know I want to center a title, I will figure out which letter in my title is the center point. So for example, in the word butterfly, the E is the center point of the word butterfly. And I will place that in the center of where I want my title to lie and then work out to the right and to the left. And this usually works as long as the letter stickers that you're using are generally the same size. These fancy pants letter stickers are pretty much the same size no matter what letter I'm using. So that's why I was able to use this method. Another thing that you can do is actually place your letter stickers on a clear ruler or a piece of clear acetate so that you can get an idea ahead of time where you want your title to lie before you start adhering stickers. It just helps you from having to pick them up and replace them if they're not exactly centered where you want them. So now I'm just finishing the word butterfly. And usually I use, you can see I'm using tweezers here. For me, that just helps me have better control when I'm placing my letters. And usually I will just place them very gently down, take a look at it, make sure everything is straight, and then go back and smush my letters. Okay, now it's time to add embellishments. But before I do, I noticed that I just felt like I needed another piece of that dark pink patterns paper here. So I cut a small 2x2 square and I just decided to add it right here on the right side of the layout. I felt like there wasn't very much pink happening on this side of the layout. And so by adding this small square, it helps to add that pink and kind of balance out both sides of the layout a little bit. So now I'm going to be using these wood veneer butterflies from Maya Road that are included in the kit. And you'll see I'm placing them in a visual triangle. Again, it's that visual triangle, and it helps to move the eye around the page. You can see here from the sketch that the flowers are again set up in that triangle. I'm just getting an idea of where I want to place these before I adhere them down. I also want to include some of these really fun word stickers from Pebbles. So I thought by the two bottom butterflies would be a great place for them since the title is up on the top by that third butterfly. So I'm just placing them, and I'll have the butterflies coming off the sides of the word on the lower right hand corner. And for the left, I'm just going to have them covering the bottom portion of the tag and the photo. Now I'm just using some glossy accents to adhere the wood veneer butterflies. Glossy accents is a great adhesive. It is clear, you don't need a lot, and it's very strong. So I know that by using the glossy accents on these butterflies that they're not going to move. So I'm just using just a little bit on the back side to adhere each of the butterflies on my layout. Now that I have my butterflies placed, I also want to add some enamel dots from my mind's eye. I'm going to use 3 enamel dots to create the bodies of the butterflies. I'm going to use a larger size, a medium size, and a small. And I'm just going to line them up right down the middle of my butterflies to create their bodies. And again, just to create some more detail and dimension on my layout. Now we're almost done. I just want to add a bit of the Maya Road baker's twine that was included in the kit. I'm going to use just a small piece of it and add a bow to this tag here by my main photo. Again, it's another detail, and it adds some focus right there by my main photo to bring the eye to the center of the layout. And now we're finished. Here's a look at the completed layout and a few detail images. For more information about Crop and Create Delivered, please visit www.scrapbookandcards.com or www.scrapbookandcardstodaymag.typepad.com.